Hey guys, welcome back to another League video, and today's a new video series I'm making essentially alongside the Why No One Plays series, sort of as a sister series. Allow me to introduce you to why everyone plays. So from this point on, I'm going to be alternating between the two series, which means I'll do a Why No One Plays, and then next week I'll do a Why Everyone Plays, and just keep bouncing in between the two. So I hope you guys are looking forward to that. To kick off the first episode, let's start in the top lane with one of League's most well-known juggernauts in practically the game's history, Darius, the big, bad brute of Noxus. Like the sister series, my goal is to create discussion over possible reasons as to why these champions see a consistently high pick rate, and more importantly, whether that's related to the champion's own statistics or player-based loyalty. So this should be pretty interesting to talk about. If you enjoy these types of videos, a rating would be much appreciated, and also subscribe for more future Why Everyone Plays videos. There's also a playlist in the description below usually, but because this is the first episode instead, I have the playlist on Why No One Plays in the description, and if this is your first time on my channel, please take a look at some of them, but for now, that's gonna be it. Let's just get started. In spite of their hysterically ridiculous rework back in 2015, Juggernauts are actually quite a tame subclass of champions, and true to their core essence of being beatdown bosses, they're very straightforward when it comes to their strengths and weaknesses. Over time, the Juggernaut subclass has seen new additions and retrofitted reworks to allow the roster to expand quite diversely, which is impressive on Riot's part for being able to find so many different ways to make a slow but powerful and meaty frontline. As of right now, the list of conventional champions in the subclass extends to the following: Aatrox, Set, Darius, Dr. Mundo, Trundle, Garen, Alawi, Urgot, Mordekaiser, Volibear, Trundle, Nasus, and Yorick. There might be a couple more, but I feel like those don't exactly quite fit the definition. For that definition though, that usually entails three main details of what consists of a Juggernaut. They have extremely high damage output, especially when considering how little they have to build in the offensive department, 1 or 2 damage items at most, and usually, those items don't give that much bonus attack damage or ability power compared to full damage items. Normally around half that, like if you look at a Black Cleaver, it gives only 40 AD, or a Sterak's gauge maybe around 35 to 40. Usual AD items can go up to 70 or 80. Because they have such good base damage and scaling, they have the luxury to build defensive items without any loss of output. Normally, every Juggernaut also comes with some form of innate sustainability such as healing, regeneration, shielding, or more than one. Their most notable attribute, however, is not one of their strengths, it's actually their weakness. Whenever you think of a Juggernaut, you probably think about how slow or immobile they are, and that's true. While each Juggernaut actually has a built-in property that makes it somewhat easier to get closer to their champions, it's safe to say they're arguably the slowest champions in the game, as they don't really win any medals when it comes to speed or burst. Due to these polarizing traits, you often see a few Juggernauts have insanely high pick rates and the rest have insanely low ones. That being said, time and time again, Darius has claimed the first place prize as the most popular Juggernaut to play, as well as the most popular top laners to pick for practically almost every elo except for maybe Challenger. Why is that though? I'm an avid Darius player myself, so I do have quite a bit of knowledge on the subject, and I can narrow that down to 3 reasons. Starting with this first one. Just like how Juggernauts as a class are pretty forthright in their abilities and their play, Darius is no exception. He's a very straightforward champion to play, with straightforward rewards and straightforward punishments. What I mean by that is that he's a very transparent champion. What you see is what you get. Nothing super crazy about him, no flaming hoops you have to jump through to play him or play against him. He's not like all the new champions that have so many conditions you gotta watch out for, such as Aphelios. To this day, I still don't know how he works. Darius gives a breath of fresh air to top laners because he's one of the few remaining champions in the game that's very elementary to play, but also very effective at what he does. I'll get into further detail on his abilities. Hemorrhage has been a very well-known aspect to his strength ever since his rework half a decade ago. Each of his basic attacks and damaging abilities supply damage over time to his target that can stack up to 5 times and deal pretty significant damage. More importantly though, at 5 stacks he gets a huge buff that allows him to instantly cap stacks on other targets and receive between 30 to 230 bonus attack damage, the highest stat boost of any ability in the entire game at max level. Even champions like Singed or Dr. Mundo who get free stats like crazy don't come anywhere close to the amount of AD Darius can reach. Anyone with basic game knowledge who reads his passive can draw the conclusion that he becomes increasingly more dangerous the longer a fight drags on, since not only does he rack up more damage on you through the bleed, but the steroid he gets at 5 stacks is game changing in almost every fight. Not to mention, trying to overpower him through numbers won't always work because all he needs is 5 stacks on one target to apply it to everyone else. Decimate slashes a wide circular area around him with the sweet spot at the outer edge, not only dealing some very solid damage, but also healing him for a percentage of his missing health, 15% for each champion capping at 45%. That's quite a bit! Again, just by reading this, most players can tell that striking as many enemies as possible in that sweet spot carries very rewarding results for the person playing Darius and devastating consequences for those playing against him. Despite his Q having overloaded numbers in terms of damage, mana cost, and cooldown, it does have very pronounced counterplay. Just avoid the tipper and you can mitigate the threat of this ability. It does remind me a little bit about Marth from Smash Bros because the character rewards you for proper spacing with really powerful and spammable attacks, but because of how stringent that spacing has to be, it is a pro and a con. Crippling Strike is an auto attack empowerment, something you see on a lot of Juggernauts actually to make up for their rather poor lack of attack speed. In fact, more than 3/4 of the ones listed on the wiki have some form of empowered basic attack. Darius's comes in the form of a 90% slow for 1 second, which is pretty substantial of a slow duration given once again the cheap mana cost and low cooldown, although that property is pretty ubiquitous among all basic attack boosters, and while most people might think that slow is not as impactful as like a Trundle Q which gives more AD, Garen's Q which silences, or Volibear's Q which stuns, remember that Darius's main goal is to just get 5 stacks of his passive. Slowing an enemy champion by 90% for a second essentially guarantees landing another basic attack right away since few have enough mobility to run away from a slow that powerful. Not only that, but Crippling Strike also makes landing the tipper on his Q so much easier that if this attack did anything more than slow, it would just be too overpowered. Imagine if it's stunned instead. Apprehend is sort of his quasi-mobility tool, just like how I mentioned before that every Juggernaut has some form of built-in mobility such as a tiny dash, bonus movement speed or such. Darius gets a pull. His E yanks everything within 535 units, so about the same as a marksman or a mage's auto attack range. It also gives them a 40% slow for a second, guaranteeing another basic attack right after. Additionally, it gives up to 35% armor penetration, the same as a Lord Dominic's Regards, for free. People really don't consider this to be much of a threat because of how intrinsic it is, and though percent armor penetration doesn't do that much in the early stages of the game, it's what allows Darius to easily contend with more bulkier characters that can slowly outdamage him such as Nasus or the like. I will say though that especially after his most recent nerfs, it does have a high mana cost and a high cooldown, but overall it is still a very threatening ability to watch out for. Lastly, his ultimate, the iconic Noxian Guillotine. Darius yeets himself into the air and nails whoever he dunks on with crazy amounts of true damage. If he successfully deals the killing blow on the target with this attack, he instantly refreshes his passive buff and resets the ability, allowing him to cast it again for free. Not only that, but at level 3 he gets to cast it for free regardless. This ability tacks on another reason why fighting him at 5 stacks is incredibly dangerous, because the ultimate's true damage also increases with every stack of hemorrhage on the target. Despite it having actually some of the lowest base damage for an offensive ultimate, it caps only I think at like 300, a fully stacked ultimate brings it to 600 at base, which is still surprisingly rather low considering level 16 champions have well over 2000 HP. Most ultimates around rank 3 can go anywhere up to like 800 to 1000 damage. But it does have a beautiful 150% bonus AD ratio. He may not be building that much AD in his items, but remember his passive can give up to 230 bonus. Hypothetically speaking, a standard Darius build will give him about, let's just say, 80 AD. Then add on an extra 230 from his passive, bringing him to well over 300. With a 150% bonus AD ratio, that can bring Noxian Guillotine's maximum damage to over 1000 true damage that can be chain casted if it lands the killing blow. And remember, if he lands the killing strike on the target with his ultimate, he instantly gains Noxian Rage, which allows him to 5-stack anyone else and then just spam ultimate everywhere. As you can tell from his abilities, they're all individually quite powerful, but just as they're straightforward in their strengths, so are they in vulnerabilities. Regardless of how many players believe that he's too overpowered, Darius is actually a very fair champion. Each of his abilities are strong, yes, but they're also exploitable. His passive is one of the best in the game, but only if he reaches 5 stacks. An easy way to prevent that from happening is to avoid fighting him in extended battles or dodge his Q sweet spot and E to eliminate any free stacks. His Q can heal him for massive amounts of HP and also do crazy damage, but proper spacing, either by being too far from his blade or being too close, is enough to make this essentially a dead ability. His E is a strong crowd control, but with rather poor reach and a narrow area of effect, meaning you can neutralize this attack altogether by either cutting him away if you're a ranged champion, or sidestep it if you're standing right next to him. I rarely see anyone doing the latter, but believe it or not, it's a lot easier to do than you might think. Lastly, his ultimate is only powerful if you either successfully land a killing blow with it or if he gets 5 stacks on you. Once again, that can be dealt with by watching your health bar when it gets low or making sure he doesn't easily stack on you for free. People do exploit certain cheese tactics like gold funneling a lot, but the majority of League players actually enjoy winning a fair fight. Contrary to popular belief, a lot of players feel better winning a lane matchup or game through superior skill and or execution as opposed to getting carried. Darius embodies that as a whole. Whether he wins or loses in either laning phase, skirmishes, or teamfights depends entirely on which player knows his strengths and weaknesses better, and that usually is the Darius player. Like I said before, what you see is what you get, or in another way, you get what you paid for. Darius rewards players who take the time to learn his attributes, something you don't always see in other champions, which makes him a very popular pick. Reason number 2 and 3 are less conceptual but equally as important to touch on. He's a raid boss, a trait also shared among most Juggernauts like Alawi and Aatrox. Putting it simply, raid bosses are champions whose main strength in a fight is their ability to force attention. You probably heard of this catch-22 before. Against a raid boss, you can't fight them because all that time and energy you spend trying to kill them gives the other enemy champions spare time to wipe you out. But you can't focus on the other champions either because the raid boss will destroy you. The sheer pressure Darius can exert on a head-on 5v5 is enough to win a fight on its own. Enemy carries have to be mindful of how close they are to him because if he gets even 2 seconds to attack you, you're practically dead. And even if he can't get close enough to nuke the backline, another way he can do it is rack up 5 stacks on a tank and then steamroll his way front to back. In my opinion, no other Juggernaut does this better than Darius, which is why he's the most popular Juggernaut to play. While other big names like Alawi and Mordekaiser do have the potential to turn around fights in 1v9 games, none of them do it as efficiently and stylishly as Darius. To this day, a 5-man pentadunk has got to be one of the most satisfying things ever, especially since it's not as easy to do as a Katarina penta or even a pike. The thing is, a lot of higher level players know this, which is why their main priority is to keep Darius away from a fight as much as possible. But in lower level play, that kind of situational awareness is almost completely absent, which makes Darius that much better. That's often the reason why he's so frequently banned in low elo because no one knows how to fight him, stressing once again that whether Darius wins or loses a game is dependent entirely on which player knows him better, you or your opponents. Lastly, he's just, reliable and consistent. You may find a lot of other Juggernauts struggle with producing stable results because a lot of their potential may either be limited or hidden behind a mountain of conditions, such as maybe Yorick requiring proper setup of his ghouls, Nasus needing a whole bunch of stacks on his Q, or Alawi has to set up her tentacles. Darius, on the other hand, he doesn't really care about what the situation is. Sure, it would be nice if he can start a teamfight immediately at 5 stacks, but the best thing about him is that he can fight pretty much at any point in time. And in most cases, he doesn't always need his ultimate to win a fight. That kind of accessibility is not as pronounced in other Juggernauts such as Garen, Trundle, or Mundo, who are usually super reliant on something like their ultimate or passive, or don't have the same kind of in-fight sustenance that Darius does. Consistency is super important in this game. I cannot stress it enough. I've said it many times in my previous videos, and I will say it in perpetuity. That is why those who are more independent and steady get favored over those who aren't. Now, it may be true that while Darius is super popular in solo queue, that doesn't exactly translate to pro play, and that's a valid point to bring up. But again, that goes back to my original point of Darius. The difference between whether he wins or loses is dependent on which player knows him better. In the professional league, just about every player in top lane is well acquainted with his weaknesses, which is normally why top laners don't pick him since he's very exploitable. That and high mobility and or crowd control is usually prioritized in pro play, which is why you may not see champions like Jax all that much either. All in all, what makes Darius popular is that he's really simple to play but also very rewarding and satisfying. He does have clear weaknesses but also very clear strengths, and a good Darius player knows how to balance out his cons with the pros. He's kind of like that friend that you really love and care about because he's super reliable and really down to earth, but you don't really want to date him because you don't want to ruin your perfectly good friendship with him. He's more of a pal. At least that's the way I think a lot of top laners look at him, because you don't see that many Darius one-tricks in high elo, but everyone at least knows to keep him in their back pocket. I don't think there exists a single respectable top laner who hasn't played Darius at least a couple times. I hope this video was insightful to those who needed it and entertaining to those who wanted it. It actually does feel good talking about mostly the good stuff of a champion and not so much the bad. If you guys enjoyed though, a rating would be much appreciated, and if you have any thoughts on Darius, either positive or negative, I'd love to hear them in the comment section below. Since this is the first Why Everyone Plays video, I don't exactly have a playlist for you to check out on previous episodes yet, but if you are interested, please be sure to check out the sister series of Why Everyone Plays called Why No One Plays. Link will be in the description. That's gonna be it though. Thank you all so much for watching, and I hope to see you again soon in the next video. Take care.